بسملة، أخرنا، يلا قوموا. بسملة
سيبنا شوي.
معلش.
أنا بكره الياسمين، بكره عشان بصحى بدري وساعات بروح أنام تحت السرير.
عارفة الياسمين اللي بتجمعيه بيروح فين؟
الياسمين اللي أنا بجمعه بيتحول إلى عطور وبيروح الدول اللي في العالم.
Perfume is a $50 billion industry and growing. And there's one flower that's found in hundreds of bottles, considered to be the most valuable scent in the business.
The most beautiful flowers that exist in perfumery.
Most exotic and wonderful of all scents.
Jasmine. BBC Eye Investigations takes you to the heart of the jasmine trade in Egypt to reveal dark secrets in the perfume industry. Children, some as young as 5 years old, are working in dangerous conditions throughout the night, and pickers are earning as little as $1 a day, while huge profits are made by giants in the business. This investigation reveals who the real masters of the perfume industry are.
There is this hidden layer. They are the ones controlling everything that goes into the fragrance.
And how they are falling short of the human rights commitments that they're promoting publicly.
They are not actually doing things that they are promised to do. It's very disturbing.
ما كنتش متخيلة إن أنا أشوف الوضع بالشكل ده.
As we expose for the first time the use of child labor in the supply chains of some of the world's most luxurious fragrances.
الموسم بتاع الياسمين 6 شهور في السنة، والعنصر الأساسي بتاعها نفسه هو الزيت.
صح كده.
Mohammed grew up in the village of Shubra Balula in El Gabia, the center of the jasmine trade in Egypt. Around 720 acres of land across the region are planted with these precious flowers. Mohammed used to work in the jasmine industry, but now he organizes tours to educate people about it.
الرحلات دي اتعملت ليه؟ عشان زي ما قلنا ان احنا نوري للناس ان احنا عندنا ده كنز.
صغيرة قوي وصافته قوي ورقيقة جدا جدا جدا.
انا هقول لك يعني النقطة الأهم فيه دي اللي بيطلع منها ايه؟
دي؟
أكتر كمية زيت بالظبط. تخيلي.
Mirna El-Habawi, a human rights activist and beauty influencer, has joined Mohammed's tour to look into where and how her perfume is made.
واو.
الموضوع بيبقى دقيق قوي يعني مش
جدا.
اللي ابتدى الموضوع اساسه كان حد اسمه احمد فخري، ده هو اللي دخل اصلا ياسمين هنا في القريه في ستينات القرن اللي فات.
وانا عطيته سمسيه محلى الكلام في العصريه بس انا
Our jasmine is a very special crop. My name is Hussein Fakhri, and I'm owner-president of A. Fakhri & Co. Jasmine is a lady of the night, so she only has a story to tell you at night, so you want to catch that fragrance.
الناس دايما شايفين الدنيا قدامهم ورديه، بس مش شايفين الجانب التاني، مش شايفين الجانب اللي هو ان مين اللي بيتعب عشان يوصل للنقطه دي.
When the sun goes down in this region, there is a secret world of the perfume industry that you don't see. Myrna wants to meet the people that pick her jasmine and is heading to fields situated outside of Shubra Balula.
محتاجة إن أنا أشوف الفلاح بعيني. اشرب عشان تفوقي، اشرب عشان تفوقي، يلا يلا يلا. بس ملا، الناس كلها نزلت وهنتأخروا، يلا. وصلنا، الدنيا ضلمة جدا، قلقانة شوية، بس خلينا نشوف اليوم هيمشي ازاي. صباح الفل، عاملة ايه؟
الحمد لله.
الحلاوة دي. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
ايه الأخبار؟
تمام الحمد لله. يلا يا ولاد.
Egyptian jasmine blooms just after sunset. In order to catch the fragrance, the flower needs to be picked before it withers in the sun's heat. Heber's family is one of thousands of pickers that have to start work in the middle of the night.
نزلنا بدري انا وعيالي. انا ما معيش الا كشاف واحد. عيالي مش هيشوفوا يجمعوا في الضلمه. يلا يا بابا، يلا يا انس، يلا عشان تلحق الحضانه الجدع. يا عم ناموسنا بهدلنا.
يا الله يا الله.
The pickers have to strain their eyes to find the flowers and fight through mosquitoes and pesticides as they gather as much jasmine as possible.
اي ريحه بتعمل حساسيه على الصدر، وبالذات ريحه اللسان بتضغط عليها اكتر. الفئه اللي عنده حساسيه في الجلد ما بطلش هرش في جسمه.
اسمك بسملة، اسم حلو قوي. ليه رابطة ايدك كده؟ يبقى ايدك توجعك جامد؟
عشان ايدي مش عارفة اجمع بسرعة.
دلوقتي مش عارفة تجمعي بسرعة عشان ايدك وجعاكي؟ في العادي بتجمعي بسرعة؟ عايز تطلعي ايه لما تكبر؟
صوت.
دكتورة.
Like the majority of jasmine pickers in this region, Heber and her children work throughout the harvest season from June to November. The temperature can reach up to 40 degrees Celsius. When the sun comes up, the pickers deliver their flowers to a collection point, of which there are hundreds. Once the flowers have been weighed, they are transported to factories operating in the region. These are the main three: A. Fakri & Co., Hashem Brothers, and Mashalico. The factories extract jasmine oil from the flowers to sell to fragrance houses around the world.
ده بتاع مين؟
ده بتاعي انا. اما شوف انا جايبه كام.
600.
ده انا جايبه يوم النهارده.
ونص.
لا صمت نص.
سعر الكيلو 45 جنيه. 4 أفراد بيجمعهم عشان يجيبوا 30 جنيه 35 جنيه في اليوم، من قبل الفجر للساعة 8 أو 9. يعملوا لهم إيه 30 جنيه؟ فريح بطيخة ب50 وب60 جنيه.
Heba, like most of the jasmine pickers, is what's known as an independent picker and works on a smallholder farm. Out of what she earns, she has to pay a third to the owner of the land that she picks flowers on. Heba alone picked under a kilo of flowers overnight, but with the help of her children picking, she managed to deliver 1.5 kilos of jasmine flowers to the collection point, leaving the family with roughly $1.50 for today's work. Inflation in Egypt is at an all-time high. The Egyptian pound has depreciated by more than 50% since 2022. Relatively, independent pickers are making less for jasmine than they have ever done before, and are living below the poverty line.
زمان كان برضو تمن الياسمين كان كويس. تمن الياسمين ماشي مع التعليم وماشي مع الأكل والشرب. طب نقارن زماننا احنا ايه زمن عيانا دلوقتي بزمان. طب انا عشان اجمع بال 300 جنيه هغيب شهر كامل عشان ناكل كيلو لحمه في طاجه. انت ممكن تجيب لي ناس تقول لك الكيلو الياسمين يسوى 140 جنيه. نتفاجئنا ان احنا لنا 30 جنيه تجميع ليه 30 جنيه. بتمنى من ربنا ان هم يعلوا السعر عشان خاطر الاطفال.
قولي لي بقى، هل بيجي عليكي فتره مش عارفه تجيبي الاكل اللي بتجيبيه كل يوم؟
طبعا بتحصل. انا بنتي لما تقول انا عايزه اكل فراخ او عايزه اكل سمك انا مش في مقدرتي ان اجيب لك. طب اعمل ايه علشان اراضيها؟ بسمله يا بسمله طلعي من هنا هاتي 15 طعميه ب10 فول. اركب ورا عمي بسرعه.
ما كنتش متخيله ان انا اشوف الوضع بالشكل ده. ما كنتش عامله حسابي ان انا اشوف اطفال عندهم 5 سنين و6 سنين و7 سنين صاحيين في نص الليل علشان خاطر يدخلوا لغايه الارض ويجمعوا الياسمين والدنيا ضلمه ومش شايفين. في مقابل ايه؟ اقل من 30 جنيه في اليوم ولا مهزله يعني مهزله.
At the start of every season, the price for a kilo of jasmine flowers is set by the factory owners. The low price is the reason why Heba has to take her children to work. But how many other families are forced to do the same? During the summer of 2023, the BBC filmed across this region. We spoke to many residents and witnessed that at 4 different locations, a significant number of jasmine pickers were children under the age of 15, working on smallholder farms. And we can reveal that most of the flowers from these locations are sent via collection points to the main factories: A. Fakhri & Co., Hashim Brothers, and Mashalico. Multiple sources have also told us that there are children working on farms directly owned by one of the factories, Mashalico, but we had no way of accessing them unless we went undercover.
خدمة كل يوم ولا بتيجي يعني كمساعدة لأبوك يعني وكده؟ أيوة تعب أمال مش تعب. أنت طبعا بتفضل في فترة طويلة. بس برضه في أطفال ياما معانا هنا برضه أمال قلبي. عندك كام سنة؟ عندي 14. بلغت سنة؟ يعني عندك كام سنة؟ 11.
In Egypt, it is illegal for any child under the age of 15 to work between the hours of 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. But in a multi-billion-dollar industry, who is really to blame? Back in Cairo, Myrna is trying to find out more about her favorite bottle of perfume.
So I have this bottle of perfume. It's one of my top favorites, Lancome Idol Intense. It has the scent of the fields in Gharbaya because it has Egyptian jasmine in it. That's why I love it so much. It opens up with notes of mandarin orange, bitter orange, Egyptian jasmine. This is the perfumer who made this perfume. Currently serving at Gévaudan. Who is Gévaudan?
The perfume supply chain goes far beyond the three main factories in Egypt. The factories sell their jasmine oil to international fragrance houses, where perfumes are created. Gévaudan, based in Switzerland, is one of the largest of four major fragrance houses, valued at $38 billion. And they've been sourcing their jasmine oil from A. Fakhry & Co. for years. But where does Gévaudan fit in the wider industry? We spent months speaking to multiple sources and industry insiders from the factories to the fragrance houses. Most were too afraid to go on the record.
The industry of perfumery is a very non-transparent and cynical world. It's all quite hermetically sealed.
We arranged meetings with people who didn't show up and received message after message explaining that no one felt able to speak freely.
It's a highly competitive, highly saturated market, driven by old-school principles, opacity being part of them.
But one established perfumer agreed to meet with us. Christophe Laudermille spent years working inside one of the fragrance houses, where he created Polo Blue for Ralph Lauren and Amber Absolute for Tom Ford. He now works independently.
In the perfume industry, there is this hidden layer, very little known from the public, which we can call the masters of the perfume industry.
As consumers, we are able to choose from thousands of perfumes that are sold by world-famous brands. But these perfume brands are owned by a handful of conglomerates, a hidden layer, considered to be the masters of the industry. Our investigation reveals the use of Egyptian jasmine in some of the perfumes owned by two of the masters, L'Oréal and Estée Lauder, and specifically their brands Lancome and Erin Beauty.
These companies, they decide how or what is going to go in the bottles. They decide about the packaging and they impose a very strict budget to create the fragrance. That budget, it trickles down, that shackle, if you wish, trickles down all the way down to the harvesters.
A more complete picture of the master's supply chain emerges. When L'Oréal and Estée Lauder decide they want to put a bottle of perfume on the market, they send a brief and a budget to the fragrance houses, like Gévaudan and Firmenich, to create the perfume. And jasmine is sourced from the factories.
These hidden masters that people don't know much about, they sign contracts with the brands and with the celebrities. So in fact, the brands don't know what is inside the bottles. Those masters organize all this for them. But the master's interest is to have the cheapest oil possible to put in a French bottle and to sell it as expensive as possible on the market. The fragrance that is in that bottle costs to the masters about, in average, $1. In that $1, you have the salary of the perfumers, the salary of the harvesters, the distillery, the logistic to get all these ingredients to the perfume factory to make the fragrance.
If the liquid inside our perfume bottles costs on average $1, what are we really paying for? Industry experts have given us a breakdown of the estimated costs that go into a $100 bottle of perfume. This further indicates that the jasmine pickers receive a very small fraction of what we consumers spend. The fragrance industry is booming, with more people buying perfume than ever before.
Best jasmine perfumes.
I have over 400 bottles of perfume. Yes, it's a lot of them. I'm a fragrance fanatic.
3,000 new fragrances were launched in 2022 alone, with many brands including Egyptian jasmine in some of their best-selling perfumes, and are sold on the market with ever-rising price tags. While it's boom time for the industry, the pickers are not seeing any of these profits, and are struggling despite promises that have been made by both the masters and the fragrance houses. In their promotional material, they paint a picture of ethical sourcing practices.
Our products and day-to-day actions contribute to the health and well-being of people and our planet.
At L'Oreal Group, we create the beauty that cares.
Our business wouldn't exist without the communities where we source and in which we operate. We want to ensure they benefit from working with us.
One of the largest fragrance houses, Givaudan, says on its website, "We do not practice or tolerate any form of child exploitation and do not provide employment to children." They've taken photos from El Garbia to promote their commitments in protecting jasmine pickers and their families. And they say in one of their glossy web pages, "We work directly with local smallholder farmers. Our work also contributes to more stable incomes to help improve the lives of these communities." But the promotional material that exists across the industry doesn't match with what we've seen in the jasmine fields in Egypt. Basmala's eyes have started to cause her pain. And today her mother Heba is taking her to a doctor's appointment 30 kilometers away from her village.
اهلا اهلا يا بسمله، عامله ايه؟
الحمد لله.
قولي لي بقى، عينك تعباكي؟ ازاي؟
كل ما اذاكر بقعد اتعب فيها. تحرق.
تمام.
لكن على ياسمين بصحى من الساعة 3
بالليل. يعني انت الشغل بتاع الجامعه ياسمين كله بالليل؟
بطلع الساعة 7:30 أو 8.
تمام، كتير قوي، اشتغل حوالي 6 ساعات. ماشي. خلي بقى عينك مع البالونه. ودي رسمة ايه؟ مش شايفاها. طب ودي؟ طبعا سيفير ألرجي، يعني عندها حساسية شديدة جدا جدا جدا، وهي حتى مغيرة لون بياض العين. الاستمرارية في طبيعة العمل ده، وطبعا عدم أخذ علاج باستمرار للالتهابات دي، يأثر على النظر والكواليتي بتاعت الرؤية. بس انتي شاطرة، صح؟ مش انتي شاطرة؟ عشان تروحي الكتاب مع الشغل. ألف سلامة.
The doctor fees and medication were expensive, and Heba and her children weren't able to work that night, losing a day's pay. The promises to support the communities that are growing jasmine in Egypt go far beyond glossy promotional material. Every layer of the supply chain has also signed a letter of commitment to the United Nations, pledging to abide by UN guidelines promoting safe working practices and eliminating child labor.
It's very disturbing.
We took our evidence to Professor Tomaya Abakata, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Contemporary Forms of Slavery.
On paper, they are promising so many good things, like supply chain transparency, and the fight against child labor. Looking at this footage, they are not actually doing things that they are promised to do. It may look like an empty promise, just a ticking box exercise. There's no safety consideration. They are not able to receive education, and their mental and physical well-being are affected as a result of that. And from what I see from these footages, these families may not have a choice but to rely on their children to make money. All of these are quite clear indicators of the hazardous work which may constitute the worst form of child labor.
Why is accountability throughout the supply chain voluntary and opaque, with no international regulation despite corporate promises and clear guidelines from the UN? We spoke to a senior executive who works for the fragrance house Givaudan. They agreed to speak to us if we didn't reveal their identity.
What you first need to realize is that the relationship between the master and the fragrance house is an informal and trust-based relationship. If a human rights issue in the supply chain comes up, the masters meet with the fragrance house directly. The masters would never carry out specific checks at the factories or fields, for example. Instead, they rely on us to instruct third-party auditing companies to prove that due diligence checks have been done.
Two of the main auditing firms that the masters and fragrance houses use are SEDEX and UEBT.
SEDEX is a global membership organization that helps identify and manage ethical sourcing risks.
The UEBT Ethical Biotrade Standard was developed to help companies and their people in the field.
Both SEDEX and UEBT assure their clients that they can help them source responsibly. So why has child labour been missed by some masters and fragrance houses, despite their supply chains being regularly audited? These audit reports are not available to the public, and to obtain them you have to be part of the supply chain. So we're contacting one of the main producers of jasmine oil in Egypt, A. Fakhri & Co., posing as a potential buyer wanting to buy ethically sourced jasmine. After the visit to the factory, they sent us the SEDEX and UEBT audit reports. The SEDEX report from A. Fakhri & Co. was glowing. However, the visit was pre-announced. They visited during the day, and only the factory site was audited. 62 employees were noted to be working there, the youngest worker being 32 years old. There was no mention of the jasmine farms or the thousands of pickers that are working throughout the night across the region. Sarah Dadouche is a professor of law and founder of the Responsible Contracting Project, where she works on improving human rights in global supply chains.
A lot of these fragrance companies say, oh, we have all kinds of auditing schemes in place to ensure that there is no child labor anywhere in our supply chain. But what your research reveals is that those systems aren't working. The auditors are only auditing what they're paid to audit. And so that may not include the jasmine fields. It may not include the price that is being paid for the jasmine.
When we went through the UEBT report that A. Fakhri & Co. gave us, we found that they had visited the farms in 2023, and there was an indication of a human rights issue, although there are no further details as to what the human rights issue is, and no mention of child labour. And despite this, A. Fakhri & Co. was still awarded a verification, which means the company can advertise to the rest of the industry that they offer responsibly sourced jasmine oil. We asked SEDEX and UEBT for a comment, and they said,
SEDEX is firmly against all forms of labour rights abuses. We exist to help businesses address these. But no one tool alone can or should be relied on to uncover and remediate all environmental and human rights risks or impacts. UEBT conducted field assessments in Egypt in 2023. One company has been issued a responsible sourcing attestation, subject to an action plan which we reviewed and approved. The attestation is valid till mid-2024 and will be withdrawn if the action plan is not implemented.
Audit schemes are really just picking up on the symptoms of a business model that isn't working for human rights. The major root cause is the price. The price is something that is very much within the control of the fragrance houses and of the masters. They are the ones that are setting the budget for how much is going to be put into producing a particular fragrance.
Things are changing and legislation is coming through, albeit slowly. In 2017, France passed a duty of vigilance law that requires large French companies to identify and prevent serious human rights violations through the impact of their activities and of their suppliers by publishing annual vigilance plans. And in April 2024, the European Parliament adopted the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. It's a major piece of legislation that, once enshrined in law, will eventually require EU and non-EU companies to conduct human rights due diligence across their entire value chain. If companies fail to comply and a violation occurs as a result, they may be held liable and face financial penalties. We put all of our findings to the masters of the perfume industry.
We never request fragrance houses to go lower than the market price for ingredients at the expense of farmers. Despite our strong commitments and actions, we know that in certain parts of the world where L'Oréal suppliers operate, there are risks to our commitments being upheld. January 2024, our partner performed an on-site human rights impact assessment to identify potential human rights violations, find ways to prevent and mitigate them, with a focus on the child labour risks. L'Oréal is actively committed to respecting the most protective, internationally recognised human rights standards. L'Oréal Group also publishes yearly global vigilance plans. We believe the rights of all children should be protected. We have contacted our suppliers to investigate this very serious matter. We are taking action to gain better transparency and to work toward improving the livelihoods of sourcing communities.
جبت ايه ده بكام؟
5.
مش انا قايله لك هاتي فوق ب10 وهاتي
انا جبت كده.
يعني جبت الطعميه بكام؟
15.
وده بكام؟
ب10.
عيش. عايز عيش؟ خد عيش اهو.
هي دي الطعميه اللي انت رحتي جبتيها؟ احلى طعميه والله العظيم. تسلم ايدك.
كل ما تنحرجيش.
باكل والله.
كل اللي اديتيه مش هتلاقي حاجه على الترابيزه. كل.
ايوه والله.
يلا.
ايه رايك؟
انا
بحبها.
احنا شبعنا، احنا من ساعتها بناكله.
بصي يا ستي، دي ازازه برفان جات لي هديه
تمام
من حد من صحابي، لقيت فيها ياسمين مصري. تمام. اللي انتوا بتقعدوا
احنا بنجمعه.
بتجمعوه ده.
فعلا ياسمين.
طب اضربي سعر.
تعمل حوالي 200 جنيه.
اي
دي ثمنها $300 تقريبا 10,000 جنيه.
احنا بندمع كيلو ياسمين من الساعة 3:30 ولا الساعة 3 4 أولاد بأمهم لحد الساعة 7:30 أو 8 و30 جنيه 35 جنيه في الآخر. فرق ازازة برفان ب10,000 جنيه تكفيني شهر؟ حرام.
كنت متخيله ان الياسمين اللي انت بتجمعيه ده فعلا غالي لهذه الدرجه؟
كلنا عارفين كده، بس احنا مين يجرى ومين يسمع ومين يتكلم ومين. قلنا كتير البني ادمين هنا، البني ادمين ما يسووش حاجه. وعلى فكره انت كده حضرتك ما شفتيش حاجه، في اكتر من كده طبعا. اسود من كده
طبعا.
تعالي شوفهم لما بتبقى الارض مرويه بيبقوا بيجمعوا وهم بيزحفوا على رجلهم من كتر الطين والوحله اللي في الارض. انا عن نفسي امهم بعيط عشانهم، بس مغصوبين ان احنا نعمل كده. انا عايزه الناس كلها تبقى تحط ريحه وتحط برفان زي ما هي عايزه، بس انا عايزاهم بس لما هم بيرشوا كده على نفسهم يشوفوا فيها ألم الأطفال ويتكلموا بصوت عالي، يسمعوا أصحاب المصانع والناس اللي بتستورد من أصحاب المصانع يشوفوا فيها ألم الأطفال. حرام يظلموا الأطفال بثمن البرفان اللي انت بتقولي عليه ده.
We asked the three main factories for a comment, and they said,
child labour is entirely prohibited at both our farm, Hussein Factory Farm, and in the factory. Over 99% of our jasmine is sourced from independent collectors who collect the product from independent farmers. In 2018, under the monitoring of the UEBT, we commenced the Jasmine Plant Protection Products Mitigation Project, which imposes a prohibition on individuals under the age of 18 working on the farms. The suggestion that the jasmine flower price paid to the farmers and pickers puts them below the poverty line is simply wrong. To the contrary, by any comparable agricultural standards in Egypt, jasmine picking is well remunerated. Mashalico doesn't use any pickers whose age is under 18 years old. Every year the price is discussed between the owners of the different factories. For 2 successive years, Mashalico has increased the price on September 2022 and October 2023, respectively. For the 2024 crop of jasmine, we'll increase the price. We refuse to comment on the report, which is based on misleading information.
He cut jasmine that's completely intoxicating.
The masters, it's in their interest to have the public believe with marketing campaigns, see, like Jasmine from Egypt, that sounds very sexy and poetic. But there's a big disconnect between the preciousness in the marketing talk and what is actually given to the harvesters. I find it ridiculous.
You know, they have to work long hours to be paid that very tiny amount when all these perfume and other companies are able to sell the final products at a very high price. It is unfair. The workers need to get paid fairer wages.
all of the entities in the perfume industry accept that they have a responsibility to respect human rights and condemn child labour. But in addition to inadequate due diligence checks on the ground and a lack of transparency throughout their supply chain, it appears that the masters have also failed to recognise the impact that their squeezed prices have on the livelihoods of the jasmine pickers. If anything is to change, it will be a commitment that's made by the whole perfume industry to take a shared responsibility in ensuring a living wage reaches the people who pick the flowers that they rely on.
So as a consumer, how can we make sure that we're buying ethically made perfume?
This shouldn't be on consumers. This is not a problem that should be for us to solve. We need law, we need enforcement of those laws, we need corporate accountability, and that cannot just be on the consumers.
The concerns raised in the BBC report are deeply alarming. Improving the lives of communities in the jasmine supply chain is a responsibility for the entire chain, and it's incumbent upon us all to continue taking action to remove the risk of child labour entirely. Child labour, in whatever form, diametrically contrasts the principles and standards that we provide ourselves, our suppliers, and all other actors along the supply chain. We have zero tolerance for child labour. We've engaged a trusted third-party human rights expert to conduct an independent review of our supply chain. We have now fully transitioned to a new supplier in Egypt. We'll work to support initiatives that seek to collectively address this issue with industry partners and local jasmine farmers, and we're willing to help fund such initiatives.